Hey guys, this is Rebecca. I am blonde in the belly of the beast. This is Robyn of Critical Condition, and today we have Alora, who is known as the Blonde Buttermaker, with us. Welcome, Alora.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Of course. Go ahead, Robyn.
So I'm really excited to hear some of the things that Alora has to share today because as I've spoken about before on the channel, I'm hoping to have a home birth within the next potentially 2 weeks. So that's really exciting. And I'm always on the hunt for birth stories from other mamas who have done it confidently and can share their experience with me and other women out there who are interested in home birth and natural birth, because I think there's a real lack in information out there about what it's really all about. I think some people think that, when you're having a home birth, you're just kind of, you're in your living room and a midwife shows up with a piece of wood for you to bite down on, and that's the extent of it, right?
Oh, yeah.
But of course, it's I think it's quite a cosmic experience based on what I've heard from a lot of other women speak about. And so I'm really interested to get Alora's perspective today. So do you want to start off by telling us about your very first experience with home birth?
Yes, and first I wanted to say I just want to give you guys like a big hug and rub your bellies, but we're not together in real life. So, but I wish I could do that. Just congratulations
Thank
to
you so
you
much.
both. And also, I was really excited to come on today because I remember I was watching your interview with Brave the World, and she was describing her VBAC, and I was just looking at your ladies' faces, and specifically Rebecca had this like horrified look on her face, and I was like, I can come on and maybe tone it down a little, and, just tell you guys it's to just trust yourself, and it's not so bad. I promise you that. So yes, I have 3 children. I have 2 daughters and a son, and my first birth was at a hospital. And after that experience, I knew that I wanted a home birth. When we were in the hospital, my husband and I were kind of just left to ourselves. The nurses would come in. I had my birth plan and saying like didn't want continuous fetal monitoring, all the things they hate when you come in pronouncing that you want. But so we were just kind of left in this dark, sterile, scary environment, wearing this like gross hospital gown that like somebody could have died in yesterday. And the hospital setting for me felt so clinical and medical. And I knew birth shouldn't be that way at all. And I was lucky the hospital I was at had a birth tub, so I got to use that.
That's great.
And they were very respectful to my wishes, and it definitely didn't go as planned. I did end up with an epidural, and that was an awful experience. It's really scary to get an epidural. You have to stay really still, and like if the needle doesn't go perfectly, like there's all your vertebra there, right? And it's like they're like, and you're having contractions, and you have to stay still. And then when it came on, I couldn't feel anything. You can't move or walk or do anything. I couldn't even lift my legs. And I couldn't feel my contractions anymore, so I didn't know how to push, and it wasn't what I thought it was going to be. So
were you induced?
I was not induced.
So you went into labor naturally?
I did.
And did your water break on its own?
No, they had to break my water.
Right.
I was in labor for 30 hours before nothing was happening, which is why I ended up with the epidural, because the midwife came in and she was like, okay, sweetheart, you're going to be at this for another 10 hours. It had already been almost 2 days by then.
Wow.
And she's like, you're going to need an epidural. And I immediately vomited because I knew I was disappointed in myself. Aww. And then I said yes, and I submitted to the whole thing, the Pitocin. I ended up with Pitocin. I hemorrhaged afterwards, and that was scary. I lost a lot of blood, and now I'm getting the scary thing, right? But everyone was healthy. It was great. It was fine. My baby was born. I became a mother. I held my baby for the first time, and I'm like, it was you the whole time, and I just felt like I had known her my whole life. So you can't, like, I don't want to say that everyone must have a home birth and you are bad if you don't choose to have one. Like that's not what I want, the message I want to give today. But I did know that I wanted a home birth. And I got, spoiler alert, I got the amazing spiritual experience for my second two births that I had hoped for.
So was your
jump in quickly? If you need to, let me know. But I can move on to that if you want. Or did you have any more questions?
I just want to know: was there any major differences between your prenatal care with a midwife and then doing the hospital route in comparison with just the home birth? Like, did you continue to see an OBGYN while you were planning a home birth, or did you just say, I've had enough with the medical community, I'm going to do this my own way? What was your philosophy there?
I decided my home birth midwife that we interviewed, and then decided to choose her right away. We just knew we were going to click with her. She was my prenatal care. I would go to her house, once a month in the beginning, and then much closer at the end. And she would do all my checkups, listen to the baby. I would ask her all the questions I needed. I decided not to do the gestational diabetes test. I wanted the most hands-off pregnancy. And that's what I got. I did get a 20-week ultrasound just because I wanted to make sure everything was okay in there.
Of course,
before having a home birth. So I did do one ultrasound, and it was so wholesome and like down to earth, to like get in the car and go to your midwife's house, instead of going to a waiting room at an OB office and getting a different doctor every time and a different nurse, and they're kind of like badgering you about everything and telling you like, if you don't get the flu shot, you are a very, you're going to risk your baby's life and all these things that my values didn't align with. So it was so much more calmer and reassuring to go to someone's house that I felt really confident in that she would take really good care of me.
Awesome. And so how did labor begin the second time?
Okay, so the second time, so I went to 41 weeks with the first two, which was like, man, when you hit 40 weeks,
you're like, I want this over with. I'm nearly there myself.
If you go over 40 weeks, like, I feel for you. And, those are just constrictions that we've put in our own mind. Like, the ultrasound can't tell exactly when you conceived. And so, it varies how long. So, that in itself is not a reason to induce if someone's over 41 weeks. But so it was the day before I turned 41 weeks. I started contractions during the day. They were on and off. My daughter was 2.5, my first daughter, and we thought, okay, this is going to be her last day as an only child. So we brought her to get ice cream, and we brought her to 2 different playgrounds, and this whole time I'm having contractions, pre-labor. I'm eating my last ice cream cone while I'm breathing through contractions. And I think usually women go into labor at night, so nothing really happened until we put my daughter to bed. And then I sat on the couch that I'm looking at right now, and I called my midwife and I told her, all right, I'm having contractions and they're steady and they're not Braxton Hicks contractions. I think they're real. And so we had a birth team Usually you're not just having one midwife. I mean, I guess
Yeah.
people have different preferences, but
Yeah.
my first home birth, I wanted a team of women there to support me. I didn't want to be left alone, scared,
Yeah.
in a sterile room by myself. Like my husband was scared too, it was his first child and he's worried about you, so women need women to uplift and surround them in these situations. So my midwife sent her nurse over and she started, helping get things ready. And then my doula came, which was part of their team, and she helped me out with pain management. And this was about midnight, 1:00, and things started progressing. And it was like, I felt like, wow, like this is going to really happen. I'm not going to be stuck at 4 centimeters for like 2 days with nothing happening. Mm-hmm. And we lit candles. It was dark and peaceful and calm. And then my midwife came and checked me and, she looked in my eyes and really, paid attention to me. And when I was at the hospital, I had different midwives and doctors come in and they didn't really even look at me. They just were like checking things off a chart and then left. And I was just like, but my midwife, she tuned into me and something told her in her intuition that the baby's hand was, stuck up like this. And so, instead of being like, oh, well, C-section or something like that, she had me do some different positions that you hold for 45 minutes. And after I did that, things really started picking up. And I guess like when you're in pre-labor, your contractions stop you and you can breathe through them. And then it's gradually starts picking up. And it's not a scary thing. Just, you need to go with the flow and surrender and let the contraction do its work. You don't want to fight it and be, oh, it hurts so bad. Like allow it. Because I think, we want to control everything, that we want to control it all. And we just need to actually remember that as women, we do have a gentle side. We're biologically different from men, and we do have a connection to our intuition, and we need to allow that to come to the surface. I think that's part of healing the disparity between men and women today is women don't need more like power and masculine things. Like we need more calm, introverted things, even if you're not like an introvert as personalities go. Just biologically, we're different.
Yes.
And so anyways, my midwife was like, it's time for you to get in the tub. So I got in the tub and then my water broke. And I had never experienced that before because they broke my water at the hospital.
Right.
It's just exactly how you would expect it to be. Like pop. And then like just as I thought it was going to be, it happened. And then I transition hit, and that's when the contractions come right after, one after another. And that's when the baby is starting to descend into the birth canal. And it's a good sign. That means you're getting ready to meet your baby.
When you were going through transition, did you ever have that moment where you kind of felt like you couldn't do it?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. And so did you have any techniques or coping mechanisms, or did your midwife give you any techniques or coping mechanisms that gave you that extra encouragement to push through that extra difficult moment?
Yes. Thank you for saying that, because it reminded me to go back to being surrounded by other women. I had a nurse and a doula, and my midwife kind of sat back and, let them help me. And we had a little old Amish lady too that was there. She was sleeping on the couch.
Had like 12 kids already, did she?
Yeah. And so anyways, that is when I needed those women, because I was starting, I didn't know what this was like. I can't do this. I was starting to freak and flip and they brought me down and they reminded me, relax your jaw. Your vocalizations should not be screaming. They should be, and that really, it just, wow, it helped me so much. And they they were so sweet. They were right there with me, holding my hands. They were moaning with me, like reminding me to keep it low and slow, low and slow. Your body is working. It's bringing a baby into this world. Just let it come down. And I definitely thought, like, never mind. I don't want to have a baby. Never mind. I don't want to do this. Never mind. But you don't have a choice. So then my midwife thought, is it time to push? So that is when she checked me, and I was 10 centimeters, but I had a cervical lip, and that means, a little bit of the cervix is still covering the baby's head, which means it's not time to push. And so we kind of worked through that, and then my labor kind of slowed down at that point. So we had my midwife's like, you got to get out of the tub. It's slowing your labor down. She just knew all these things. And I got out. I said, I'm not moving. I'm not, like, there's a baby between my legs. Like, I can't move. But again, my birth team were like, calm down. We're getting you out of the tub now. They got me out of the tub. They laid down the Chuck's pads, and I laid on the floor. And just as my midwife said, I was ready to push. And I pushed like 5 times maybe, and the baby was born. And
wow.
My midwife reminded me, push slowly and steadily, because I was ready to just push her right out. She was ready to come, but I didn't tear, because my midwife, again, with her like knowledge and experience, go slow. I didn't tear. My baby was born and came right to my chest, all, gross and sticky and slimy. And I did it, I did it. And it was the healing, most spiritual thing I have ever experienced in my life. And I was kind of robbed of that at the hospital. And so this was a healing birth for me, my second birth. And another great thing about midwives is they have home birth midwives. They have, my home birth midwife had a big, like, toolbox, like huge, like industrial toolbox, just full of tinctures and herbs and homeopaths. And so meanwhile, throughout my whole labor, she's giving me this, giving me that. And I think it really sped things along. So I would say about my, like 1 a.m. in the morning was when things really got serious. And the baby was born by 5:30.
Wow.
Which is amazing. I mean,
that is amazing.
For me, it was like, wow, that was a pretty textbook labor. Like, bam, 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 water breaks, transition, push out your baby. Your baby's here.
Wow.
And you know what? Like, the memory of the pain just disappears. Like, when you're pushing, it actually doesn't hurt when you're pushing, which is awesome, because by then you've had it. It doesn't hurt, because this time the contraction is working. It's working with something. It's not just getting baby into the spot. It's actually working, and it doesn't hurt to push out your baby. And then I delivered the placenta just right on my dining room floor. And then I actually did hemorrhage again, and I was bleeding a lot. And so my midwife did a few things that stopped it right away. We made sure to get the baby latched, because that helps your uterus clamp down and stop.
Yep.
And it wasn't an emergency situation, because, when you're interviewing midwives, you want to ask them, like, what do you do in this situation? What do you do in that situation? And I made sure that she was proficient with the possibility of a hemorrhage. And so she was, and she got it done and taken care of right away. You want a midwife with, like, a strong personality who gets things done. And I had that. And so it was amazing. And then you have your baby, and no one's taking away your baby. No one's poking and prodding and saying, well, we need to weigh and we need to do this.
And wash them and
when I had
in their eyes.
right when I had my daughter, my first daughter, they took her away. They give her the vitamin K shot. They did this, and they pricked her, and she was just screaming, and I over there, and I couldn't like do it. It was just like, I just birthed my baby. I just want to, cuddle and hold them close. And
there's no medical reason why you couldn't have just cuddled her and had that moment before they did all of those things either. I find it is starting to become a little bit more mom-centered in some hospitals and in some clinical practices, but unfortunately that is the experience that I think a lot of women end up going through, and it can lead to like a pretty rough postpartum. Were there any like serious or significant differences between postpartum that you feel like were a result of the difference between the hospital and the home birth?
Yes, I after I had my first daughter, a nurse came in and she said, "Okay, the baby has to nurse and needs to latch on and nurse. Otherwise, we have to give her an ounce of formula straight away." And all of a sudden, I was like, "Ooh,
Yikes.
like there's pressure here."
That's
and
terrible.
she took the baby's head and just like slapped it on my breast, and there was no like natural, gentle, process. It was just, she was like, "This is how you do it," and just went like that, and it hurt so bad because she didn't check if the latch was right. We didn't do it gently. We didn't make sure things like were positioned correctly for, a little newborn baby to get a good grip, I guess you'd say. And of course, like I'm screaming that it hurts and the baby's starting to cry. And then she's like, "Oh," and took away the baby and gave her an ounce of formula, which is a lot of food to put in what's Similac, like corn syrup, like all the awful things.
Yeah, the Similac has some pretty rotten ingredients in it.
Yes. So that was a postpartum thing that really upset me, and it kind of set me up to have a really difficult time breastfeeding. We did in the end get to breastfeed exclusively, but it was kind of a setback to have, you gave the baby a bottle and now you're trying to force them to breastfeed. And that was hard. I got the baby blues with all three postpartum, like just crying. It's
normal.
It's normal because I think that it's part of your evolution as a woman. We have to mourn, the loss of just you and your husband. You're just you and your husband, and you have to just mourn and feel the sorrow of adding, another family member in the change. And it's okay to feel sorrow because it helps you to move on into process. We don't want to push that away.
Of course.
So when I added, our second daughter, I wept and wept for my first daughter. You're not an only child anymore. And, we worked through that, and, it's okay to feel pain. And, so that is one thing, was the breastfeeding was hard in the hospital. But it was just a miracle when you have a home birth, you birth your baby, it's quiet, and you're in your own home, like I can go to the bathroom as I please. I can do this as I please. I can go into my kitchen. Like during labor, I was kind of all over the place. I wasn't in this gown with these things hanging off me and all these beeping, beep, beep, all these, crazy things going on. And that has a play in our hormones. If we're in the fight or flight mode at the hospital, it's definitely going to hinder progression of labor for sure. And it was just really nice to, after the baby was born, we all just my husband dragged down a mattress. It's like a meme in our house that every time I have a baby, like my husband drags down this mattress, and we slept. We just went to bed and we slept, and we just, our own music, our own smells. And it was a very calm spiritual experience. I regained confidence in my womanhood, and I wish the experience upon every woman. I think that if you're not a high risk woman, then it's completely possible to have a home birth. The only reason you wouldn't is because just not, maybe it's not part of our society. It's not in our like mind. It's not something that we think of as normal, and so we're just uneducated about it.
It's true. The medical community, I think it has such a powerful and dominating influence on all of our mindsets about what our bodies are capable of, about the risks that we potentially take by not engaging with the medical community as much as they would maybe want. And I know for myself, like I feel like a lot of the things that you're saying like completely resonate with how I feel about what I want from my birth and what I envision from my birth. But I would be lying if I said that, you know, the influence and the pressure that, you know, I think the medical community puts on women has affected me too. You know, it's like, it's impossible to escape from. And I really think that, I mean, I'm obviously speaking from ignorance, but I feel like if you're in a state of fear about labor, that's going to make it harder. It's going to make it more difficult. And I don't want to be in a state of fear about labor. And I've done so many things to try and alleviate that fear, but I still feel it. And I think the medical community is a big part of the reason why we as women feel like we doubt our own ability to birth our babies, which is, it's like the most natural thing in the world.
Yeah, I think that my husband and I were just like watching a movie the other night, and it was like, you know, in the media, they portray birth as an emergency situation, and you know, movies and TV shows, and it's like we were watching some show, and the woman was screaming and screaming, and we're like, oh, labor's happening, and it's like, that's not how it happens. Like, it's not like all of a sudden painful screaming, you're doubling over. Like, it comes slowly. You get built up and ready for it. And I think this modern day, the natural birth process, it can't be measured and like data taken about each step of the way. We have all these instruments that measure and collect data, and then we're expected to progress through labor on a set time scale at the hospital. But I believe that our bodies have a divine genius that can't be measured, and our bodies know what is right and will progress accordingly to the needs of this complex system that we have. And, you know, maybe when a woman is in labor for a whole day or more, you know, that's when the hospital medical team will begin to introduce these unnecessary interventions. And, you know, maybe your body, you know, wasn't ready for that yet. And, you know, we're not performing to like the averages and standardized scales. And it's just a little too, you know, over medicalized, I would say.
Yeah. I think it also matters where you live in the country. I don't know if you've watched all of our episodes, but I am giving birth in a hospital because my team of midwives, the hospital's pretty crunchy. And so I had a friend that planned a natural birth and everything. She ended up, because of a long labor, I think she was in labor for like 40 hours. She ended up having to go to this hospital, and she's like, they just do delayed cord clamping and like all the stuff. That's just what they do. They'll give you the kind of birth experience that you want.
That's good.
So I'm like, but I'm the kind of person that I need I don't think I would do as well at home. I kind of need the the reassurance of the medical community, but we'll see how it goes. I mean, I'm definitely scared, and I'm super happy that Robyn is 3 months ahead of me, because I'm like, tell me how it goes, and then tell me how all these baby products work out, and I'll decide whether or not to buy them based on that. But yeah, I mean, the home birth experiences that I've heard from people, like, I am envious of that, but I also really question my circumstance, whether or not it's the appropriate thing for me to do
You
at
have
this
to
point.
you have to do what's right for you, I think, at the end of the day. And I think it's very, very common for women who are even open to the idea of natural birth and home birth to, in the very least, want to experience this very intense, like it's an extreme experience, birth. It's not like some minor life event, right? In what would be a more kind of controlled environment. And I think that, no one should feel pressure to go ahead with a home birth that they're not comfortable with. Because I think from what I've heard from home birth stories, and I think I've mentioned this before in previous episodes, what ultimately seems to be the thing, which is the defining characteristic about how women feel about their birth, is not where it is or how it went down or how their baby came into the world. It's about whether or not they felt like they were in control. Yeah. And like they were being respected, and what they needed was being listened to by the people who were surrounding them. If that means you need to be in a hospital, you do that, right?
And whether or not they were given informed consent. We were talking about this a little bit yesterday, and I don't feel like things are being pushed on me, but Robyn's having a totally different prenatal experience than I am. Like, nobody gave me the option of not doing the gestational diabetes test. They're like, here's your paperwork, here's your gross orange drink, and like at 27 weeks, you're going to come in and do this. And like, I actually did not know that you could refuse this.
No one even suggested to me that I do it. Like, and I didn't want to do it because I have no risk factors. I don't want to drink that orange drink. I've heard so many stories about the gestational diabetes check being used as this reason where the medical staff will be like, oh, well, you're going to have this gigantic baby if you don't get induced at like 38 weeks. And then the baby comes out and they're like 7 pounds. So I'm just like, I'm not doing that.
Ultrasounds are not, they're crap for determining how large your baby is when you're in your 3rd trimester. Because I was just talking to a woman the other day, and she was induced because they did an ultrasound and it said her baby was 8 pounds. And so they were like, you can't go to term. You can't push out a baby that big. So we're going to induce you in 2 weeks. And then her baby was born and it was way under 8 pounds. And she ended up having a C-section because they induced her. She wasn't ready for labor at all. And, that's the stage for future. She had 2 other C-sections after that because of having the first one.
That's the thing, like avoiding C-section. Of all the things the complications that I'm worried about, like I just feel like I mean, I'll do whatever I can to get the baby out and the baby's healthy and everything, but I'm going to be so devastated if I have to have a C-section, and I'm going to fight them on it just tooth and nail. And so I just really don't want to get in a position where they're anticipating that at all. So I don't know. That's what I'm most scared of. That's why the VBAC stories and everything were so horrifying to me, because I just can't even imagine what the recovery of a C-section is like. Yeah. And it's so unnatural too. It's like, slitting open your stomach to pull out your baby. Like, this is not what I had in mind at all. Not that C-sections haven't saved some lives. I mean, they definitely do. But I think that it really is often just because it's convenient for the doctor. It's a 20-minute procedure, and it's really doctor friendly. So that's what I am most worried about. Robyn, what are you most worried about with your natural birth?
Me? What am I most worried about?
Yeah.
Tearing. I think tearing is the thing that I'm most worried about, which I think is really common. I do feel like I'm taking precautions to prevent tearing. Like, I do sitz baths, and I have an Epino device. I don't know if you guys know what the Epino is. It's a German device basically that's used for like perineal stretching. It's not like glamorous, but it has like an 80% success rate. And I do that. I'm doing a lot of acupuncture. I've done like a lot of birth courses that would give me like techniques for keeping things slow and not pushing things out too fast. And my midwife is also really skilled. She's very experienced. And I've spoken to a bunch of women who she has helped with babies before, and they all say that like she's not going to make you push before you're ready to push, and that's kind of like one of the defining characteristics in avoiding tearing. But like if I tear, I tear also.
Right.
Like I would rather have tearing that goes along the muscle fibers and that heals naturally than an episiotomy, right?
Yeah.
Like I would much prefer that. So I'm not like, it's my first birth. Chances are there is going to be some tearing, even like, at the first or second degree. It's very, very likely. I'm not like gonna not go for my natural birth because I'm afraid of it. But if I had to pick one thing that scares me most, it's like that moment where I know I'm gonna have to push my baby out and I'm gonna have to push into that pain. And I'm worried that I'm not gonna be strong enough to do that. But I hope I am. I'm praying that I am.
Well,
At
you
least
don't
it's
have a
this moment.
choice.
Yeah,
You
that's
don't
true.
have a choice.
Like the baby's gonna come out and you don't get to choose. So
Yeah.
how about, what are you guys most, instead of like, maybe we're getting too down, what are we all afraid of, and what are all these bad things? What are you guys most excited about the
That's a
birth?
great question. Do
Like-
you want to go first, Rebecca?
Yeah, sure. I mean, it's just so weird because like I can feel her pattern of kicking, and like sometimes now when I play music for her, she'll like kick. Yesterday she was kicking to the beat of this Irish song
Wow.
that I was playing, and I was just like, this is so
She probably has better
amazing.
moves dancing than I do, and she's not even born yet.
She's in there and like she's really active, and like I know when she sleeps and I know when she's awake, and she's kind of developing this little personality. And in the ultrasound, I could see her little face, like I could tell that she has my nose, and it's just, I just can't wait for that moment when like I see her and I'm like, wow, that's what's been growing inside of me this whole time. Like it's been you, this little independent person with this little personality. And then I'm really excited for that first skin on skin contact, and then the breastfeeding. So I really hope that goes well, that she's able to latch, and that I'm a good producer and everything like that. Because that's going to be so important for the bonding and for the healing. Cause I think that's going to be what makes me feel like all of this pain and everything, and just like my body's just getting destroyed, is worth it because of this, because this is what I created.
Well, you're becoming a mother, and you say your body's being destroyed. I'm a really strong proponent of switching our language around. You could just as easily say, I'm bringing a human being to this world. I am a divine feminine entity. Like I don't have to keep up with the men. I don't have to,
That's true. Yeah.
I used to think before I was a mother, society teaches women, you're just as good as a man. You need to go to work. They're telling us we need to do all these masculine things, and it hurts you inside. And then I birthed 3 children, and no man can do that. And which is fine. That's okay. And I realized I have value in being a woman, a biological female. Like I don't have to play into what the media is telling me what a female should be. I don't have to know all the facts about aerospace. I don't need to feel like I need to watch the news every night. Like you are making a beautiful little girl, like who's gonna grow up and hopefully like save this world. Okay, like forget about us. We're old news now. Like,
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
Well, yeah.
That's definitely true. And I was talking to my other podcast co-host, Matt Christensen, about this. And we were talking about my pregnancy and like how he feels about being the breadwinner, because he's about to get married. And he's like, I would rather work 12 hours every day for the rest of my life than go through what you're going through right now. And I was thinking, that is so freaking crazy to me. That is just so crazy, because although I feel like my body changes are upsetting me, I've gained like 18 pounds and I'm 24 weeks. So I'm like, that's too much weight. You know?
Will lose the weight. Like why? I just wonder why women care so much. you need to gain weight.
Yeah.
And it's not weight because you're like all of a sudden this fat ass. Like you need that.
There's some of that though. I mean, the food thing's been a real struggle.
It
will
will
be a
go
good
away.
transition to the nutrition thing too, because it has been such a struggle in my pregnancy.
The fat will go away is what I just want to tell you.
Oh, did we even get to you, Robyn?
No, it's Robyn's turn to tell us.
Sorry.
It's okay. No, it's what I'm most excited about. But before I go into that, though, I will just say to you, Rebecca, because I haven't said it to you yet. You like my weight hasn't been like a steady progression. Like I know they say like in your third trimester you're supposed to be gaining like a pound a week. Like I'm in my 9th month now, and I've like my belly is getting bigger. Like measurably bigger every week, but my weight has pretty much been staying the same for the past 3 weeks.
It stops,
right?
Yeah.
Like
second trimester,
feasible.
it was just crazy.
Same. Like I gained like probably 15 pounds in like a month and a half. You know, in my second trimester, it was just like boom, like whoa, my butt is huge.
Let me tell you something. Let's just talk numbers. Before getting pregnant with my first daughter, I was 130 pounds. And then I gained, do the math, I was 185 pounds when I gave birth.
Right.
I've had 3 children. I now weigh 120 pounds.
Wow.
10 pounds less. I'm not exercising, which I should be. I'm just eating healthy, and that wasn't the weight you gain when you're pregnant wasn't meant for you. Like unless you, after you have the baby, you start eating McDonald's every day. Like obviously, but that weight wasn't meant for you to keep. Like it's gonna go away. I promise you.
Yeah, I feel the same way. Like when I look at my body now, I feel differently than when I did in the second trimester, because in the second trimester it was like an all over weight gain, but now in the third trimester it's just my belly. Like I feel like my arms and legs are shrinking, but my belly is getting bigger. It's very strange. So don't worry about the weight gain. Like it's not a linear progression. You're not going to continue gaining weight in your third trimester the way you are right now. So don't worry about that. With regard to what I'm most excited about, I really want to know what my little boy's eye color is. Like I can't wait. I can't wait to look in his eyes and see his eye color, because myself and my husband both have heterochromia. So we have like a little bit of amber that goes around our pupils, and then it's blue on the outside. And we both have that, which is kind of rare. So I'm really hoping that he has that. I'm really excited to see what his eye color is. I'm also really excited for that. So you know how like babies will like grab onto your finger like that? I just want that. Like I just want him to like squeeze my finger. I want that feeling.
I love that. They do it with their toes too. If you poke below their toes curl on you too. That was one of my favorite things to do.
I'm so excited for that. Like it's making me want to cry just thinking about just like feeling his little hand around my finger. And I'm also really excited to like, I think this is my husband's first child, obviously. I think he has been very involved, like in a way that makes me really happy with this whole pregnancy. But I think even he, as much as he's been involved, is really naive about what it is that he's about to experience me do, right? Like I think he's not at all prepared to witness what he's about to witness. And he's about
to witness the clouds parting, the oceans parting, like
yes. And he's a very like stoic individual. He's a very like robotic.
He's gonna be blown away by you.
And I want him to be proud of me, and I want him to see like what I'm capable of, and I want to like show him this like very deep, emotional, strong part of me that he's never seen before. So I'm really excited to like. I'm actually really excited to see my husband have skin to skin with his son after I've given birth to him for the first time. Like because I know he's going to be emoting like never before. Like he's so like not emotional that I'm so excited to see him feel those feelings for the first time with his son. And I'm gonna really try and hold on to those things. And really thank you for asking me those questions, because now they've been brought to like the surface of my consciousness. And when I'm in those moments of self-doubt, maybe I'm gonna try and remember those things.
Yeah. Okay. Yes, definitely. That is what got me through. I was a little like I felt a little weaker my third birth because I didn't do what I really needed to do to regain my pelvic floor strength. And so pushing took a lot longer with my son. It wasn't like crazy. It was like 15 minutes versus 5 minutes, but still. And also during transition, I've had 2 daughters. And so you have no idea how excited we were to have a son. And he was like just the biggest blessing and light in our lives. And when I was going through transition, the part where you think you're gonna die, all I could do was I just pictured his face, and it melted away all of the awful pain. Like it just melted everything away. And so finding tricks and tips to turn a bad situation around, I think, is really important. Instead of focusing on all the bad and all the things that could go wrong, like, girls, like I said, you're about to give birth to a human being. Let's celebrate it. Let's be excited. This is a family event. Like, there needs to be cake and champagne afterwards. That's how we should be preparing for birth, not worrying about every little thing. And I do think that our thoughts turn and create health. And when we are always worrying and thinking about the worst case scenario, it's not helpful to our bodies.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. If there's anything that I'm going to take away from this conversation, is that like focusing on the positivity is going to be good for the pregnancy, because I'm just so worried about the things that could go wrong or that maybe are going wrong right now. And I just don't know that I am not prepared at all. Just listening to how Robyn has prepared for the pregnancy, I'm like, I haven't done any of this shit. Oh my God, I haven't done anything. I'm not ready for this at all. But I just keep trying to remind myself that like a lot of it is going to be a natural process that like maybe I'll know. Because right now I don't even know what I don't know. I was trying to think of things that I should read.
If you don't know it, don't know it. Like,
I
have to.
Yeah. So I'm just hoping that it kind of comes naturally. And my husband yesterday was asking me questions like, all right, like the first few weeks, what do we do? And I was like, I'm pretty sure that babies are difficult, but they're uncomplicated. Like they just need a boob. And that's pretty much it. And so just get a bunch of diapers, and then I'm just going to sit on the floor and breastfeed for like 3 months, and it's going to be fine. He's like, you're not going to read any books, or I'm like, it's going to be fine. Everything's going to be fine.
I think that's a really good thing, Rebecca, to be honest. Like my midwife, she tries to get me to slow down a little bit with all of the things that I'm trying to learn and prepare myself for, because she's like, there is this thing among midwives where, midwives don't actually always have easy birth. Like you think that a midwife who knows all of these things and she's super aware of all the processes is going to have this easy, no problem birth. But all of that verbal thinking, it takes you away from the instinctual, natural processes that are like way more spiritual and heart-based. And it can be a hindrance, according to my midwife, to the entire process. And she also said to me with regard to the postpartum period, the best thing that you can do, to kind of like not even prepare, but to survive or to thrive in the postpartum period is just to observe your baby. Yeah. Just literally pay attention to your baby and see what your baby is like, what your baby's personality, what does your baby want or need? Are they the kind that wants to be held all the time? Are they great sleepers? Do they need help sleeping? Do they have a difficult latch? Like those are all things you can't really prepare for anyways. Right. So there's no point stressing yourself out about needing to know all of these things in advance. Like I think Alora really points to something really important about the journey into motherhood, which is that we need to surrender to nature and to our instincts as women, because that's going to be our most powerful tool, not some book written by someone else, right? That's how I feel anyway.
Yeah, I would say just birth is one of the most powerful rites of passage a woman can go through. I heard this quote or the saying, you can't have the ecstasy without some of the agony. And that like really rang true when I thought about it, and I kind of like connected it to birth. And in retrospect, feeling the pain of labor, it was an honor and a privilege. It's like the pain was like the most beautiful, powerful pain you could ever feel. Like maybe an example could be like if you're like exercising and you're trying to do like an overhead press or something,
Yeah.
and it hurts and you're burning, but then you got it up and you did it, and that pain felt good, right?
Yeah.
It's a pain that makes you whole and complete, and it really dispels any sense of self-doubt or uncertainty that you've had in yourself. And I like always say that becoming a mother and being a parent, it makes you a better person. It heals any like soul work that you have needed to do. Any personality flaws you have, like it will be brought to the surface and you have to destroy them. Like it will bring you down to like the most bottomless pit of like well that you've ever been in. And by going down there, you can really see these are some things that I need to change, and you do change them. And becoming a mother has made me such a better person. I have found my true self by feeling that pain.
That's beautiful, Laura. Before we move into some of your thoughts on tips for prenatal nutrition, would you like to mention anything about your most recent birth with your son that would be, different, going into the home birth experience for the second time?
I was thinking about this, and my second and third birth were pretty similar. My third birth was easier and it went quicker. I wasn't really looking for like that healing spiritual experience. I just wanted to see my boy. So I didn't even care. Like, just push him out, like whatever. Like I already did the whole spiritual, do the essential thing with my second daughter. Like,
right.
I felt like birthing two children, I knew what to expect this time. It was like birthing your third child is so awesome because, your first, you're terrified, you have no clue. The second, you still, if it's a different experience, like I had hospital then home, it was like doing it all over again. But having your third child is so easy. Like it just, you already have kids, you already have all the things that kids need out and about. Like you already know, okay, I don't know. It was a really easy, nice birth. It was a pleasurable experience. In my two home births, even though there was the pain, they were awesome experiences. Like I felt like I rocked it, and I had other women there to support me and to, it's just such a tender moment when you have a home birth too, because you have like, can I get you some tea, and you need to eat, and let me make you a meal. Like all the assistants made me meals, or they made me have a snack, and we did all the prenatal checks with the baby on my chest, and on my couch, just hanging out, and so they were great. They were awesome experiences, and I wish I could experience it again. Like I'm probably done having children, but I like to think about them and relive them. It's an awesome thing.
That was my next question. Are you gonna have more children?
There's like the meme, like you got to have 10 kids, right? Like,
yeah, you single-handedly need to perpetuate the white race. Don't you know?
It's like, yeah, like Rebecca, it is true that your body's like getting messed up, right? So I'm not focusing on that. I find beauty in being a mother. It's like the maiden, mother, crone life cycle of a woman. Like you're not a maiden anymore. You don't have to be this young, fresh woman. Like you're a mother, and that's powerful and that's beautiful with a baby on your hip. you will be so much more beautiful. It doesn't matter your pant size or your breast size. Being a mother imparts this amazing glow and happy outlook to your life that's much more important than trying to when we're young, trying to attract a mate. Well, now we're mothers and we have some authority, and it's a different kind of beauty that you need to weep for the loss and then embrace the gain, I would say.
Definitely, yeah. And even inherent in the question of like, are you going to have more children? I think that just inherent in the question is that you haven't done enough. And I feel like we get so much of that.
Or you've had too many, right?
Yeah, I get that from the left. We get that from the left. And then from the right, it's like, unless you're having 6 kids, then I don't even want to. I get this comment. It's like, because I made a video about me being pregnant, and like half the comments were like, which I totally deleted and edited out. We're like, this is your first kid. Like, talk to me when you had 6 kids. I don't even want to hear it from you. Like 6 minimum. It's like,
who's saying that? Like childless, like
probably
18-year-olds in their basement that just discovered this movement.
I don't know. I mean, but
they don't know what they're talking about. They've never seen the woman they love
go through this.
Like give birth. They have no clue. And so any comments like that, that's just trash.
Yeah. And so I kind of feel like we need to have this more positive attitude that like we should all just be grateful for the number of children that God is going to give us. And even if this is my only child and something goes wrong and I can't have any more, like I'm so grateful that I get to have this one child. So I try to think about that when I get really stressed out about child spacing or being in my early 30s. I'm like, I'm just going to focus on one right now.
Yes, absolutely. So with regard to nutrition, and I'm really interested to hear your take on this, knowing now that you're 10 pounds lighter than what you were before you got pregnant with your first kid. That's absolutely incredible. So what are some of your personal recommendations for nutrition during the prenatal period? And are there differences going from trimester to trimester, or is it kind of like a holistic one package mindset? Yeah,
I do not focus and like overanalyze about trimester to like week by, this week my baby's brain is forming, so I have to eat this and this.
I'm so guilty of that.
We talked about that on our last stream.
If you're eating a healthy diet, you'll be nourishing, all encompassing. And I mean, if you want to do that, that's fine. I just personally, I have a lot. I try not to worry. I go with the flow. So I don't recommend that necessarily as I follow, for anyone that's going to be watching this or is listening now, great information is from the Weston A. Price Foundation, westonaprice.org. I'll try to be quick. Weston A. Price was a dentist and he did most of his experimenting or traveling and observing in the 30s and 40s, and he went to primitive cultures and compared their dental health to neighboring cultures that were nearby. But back then there was still like primitive could be alongside the industrial, and he compared them. And maybe the left isn't going to like this, what I'm about to say, but healthy diets produce beautiful babies, and beauty is not only skin deep. Through his observations, he found a direct correlation with like what we view as beauty. A nice broad face, a broad jawline, high cheekbones, symmetry in our faces, a straight nose, and beautiful teeth, beautiful straight teeth, wide arches. And, for example, this is based on nutrition, and nutrition, not just what you ate when you grew up, what your mother ate while she was pregnant with you, what she ate as a child, what her mother ate.
Wow.
So when they say, because crooked teeth are generational or genetic. It's like, yes and no. Like, if your mother had crooked teeth the same way you do, like maybe it's more like epigenetics. She ate a modern diet, which is devoid of the essential fat-soluble vitamins and also minerals that, are the building blocks of a baby. That's just how it is. And so, each generation will have crooked teeth. I mean, I'm not saying, I'm perfect. I did not eat perfectly during all my pregnancies. I had awful morning sickness. I couldn't even think about drinking bone broth. Like, and here I am, like the blonde Buttermaker, and I'm like eating like gluten-free peanut butter and jelly sandwiches, like 2 in a row, like when I'm trying not to like puke during morning sickness. So it's a journey, but ideally how to fix that, and I wish I would have known this, is for young women who are listening who haven't aren't pregnant yet, your diet should begin before you get pregnant, because you can fix the standard American diet. You can fix that, like, and get your body prepared and undo some of the damage, that not our faults, we didn't know.
Right.
So educating yourself. So one of the first steps, a year, this is like all ideal, right? But, if we want to aspire to greatness, so a year before you get pregnant is when you want to start doing this. And we're going to start doing that by getting rid of, I would say, the number one danger to having a healthy, beautiful baby, which is processed factory foods. So, if you go to the store, if you're wondering, what does that mean? Like, go to the store and like all of the shelves in the center of the store, crackers, chips, cereal, Pop-Tarts, muffins. And I was like, try to think of all these things that, like, if it has like this big paragraph of things, it's going to have, soy oil and artificial this food just fills you up and makes you not feel hungry, which is like debatable. Like it causes more cravings. You want to eat more of it, but it satiates you, but it doesn't give you any nutrients. There's a lot more to having a beautiful face. These proportions, when they're not correct, they cause a lot of the modern childhood diseases, such as, I would say, like ear infections, the development of your jaw and the ear canal, sinus infections. If we don't have adequate nutrition in the womb, our skulls aren't formed correctly. And it's not just beauty, it is more than skin deep. So breathing and sleep disturbances in children, the ear infections, the tongue and lip ties, problems breastfeeding, vision problems, asthma, extending down into the chest, thyroid. All these things have to do with having the correct proportions of your skull. So we know what to get rid of, and we know why we need to do this. I tried, like, this is a really big topic, and I tried to sum it down, and which makes it like go longer, because we could do like 5 hours of this, but basically what you want to do is anything you were taught in school about a healthy diet and health class, get rid of it. That's not going to build a baby. What is going to build a baby is a high-fat diet, nutrients. We're eating to nourish, not to fill ourselves up. Like, I'm hungry, I'm going to eat some Triscuits. Like, if you're hungry, your body's telling you that it needs some vitamins and minerals. And when you're eating Triscuits, you're just eating empty calories. And, there's like, it's enriched with fake vitamins, which are actually deleterious to our systems. Okay, so we're talking about fat-soluble vitamins such as A, vitamin D, vitamin K2, which comes from animals, not K1. And I just remembered this when I was doing some reading. You cannot absorb minerals from your diet without these fat-soluble vitamins. And you want minerals are so important if you have like anemia, blood issues, or low iron, which is common in pregnancy. I had low iron. I wasn't supplementing enough with magnesium. Magnesium helps with that. Like vitamin C, huge doses of vitamin C. So what can we do? Like, let's, be positive. What can we do? We can eat foods such as seafood. And actually I wanted, Robyn, could you talk for a second about your fish roe, caviar?
My debacle.
Like, I need to hear about this because I actually, I've never really had that before. I'm like, oh man, like I'm like the blonde Buttermaker, and I don't really know much about fish roe, but it has high iodine, right? And
it has high iodine. It's like in terms of the amount of weight that is in fish roe, it's very high in fat, in protein.
Okay.
It's one of the most effective forms of getting DHA and omega-3s and omega-6s in terms of like the bioavailability. So I found this information from a dietitian named Rhonda Patrick. I'm not sure. Are you familiar with her? I'm pretty sure it's Rhonda Patrick. If you Google search her name, she has a ton of resources and peer-reviewed studies which support these things. And so she recommended taking about 30 grams, which is roughly 2 tablespoons of fish roe a day. Okay. From you could theoretically start in the middle of the second trimester. I didn't start until probably closer to the end. And then I did 2 tablespoons of fish roe a day from roughly the end of my second trimester up until about a couple weeks ago. So I purchased my fish roe and it's wild Alaskan chum fish roe. And I also have coho fish roe, and they're not like the little tiny ones you see on sushi. Okay. They're like the big marbly type ones.
Sounds delicious. Like little multivitamins. That's what they sound like to me.
My husband loves them.
I eat weird things.
I mean, I don't mind fish roe, but I have had aversions to seafood throughout almost the entirety, and it's much more psychological than it is flavor, and just like the gooey texture kind of makes me it makes me think of like snot, and that makes me want to retch a little bit, which is terrible. It's so psychological for me, but I've
been doing it every day,
and then I did it every single day to the point where I started to get sick. Like I started to I think I was getting in my own head too much, and I was having trouble even just swallowing it. Yeah. Right.
I can see that.
I talked to my midwife about it, and she was like, look, you have given your baby all the DHA that he will ever need. You don't, even if you like cut it back to like 3 times a week, if it makes it more doable for you, that would be better than putting this pressure on yourself to be eating it every single day, because it culminated in me forcing myself to take it. And then there was one night where I got in my own head, and I ended up actually throwing up my supper. Right. And so then I was like, okay, throwing up your supper and all of the protein and the delicious vegetables and everything that you ate is not worth the 2 tablespoons of fish roe for the next 4 weeks. So I said, okay, I've done my due diligence with the fish eggs, and I would recommend them to anyone, especially if you enjoy them. It's a very simple way that you can get your DHA in, because I know there's a lot of debate on whether or not DHA tablets like krill oil and fish oil is as bioavailable as we would like. It'll say you're getting 30 milligrams of omega-3, but that depends on how much you're actually absorbing.
Well, right? and also, we have to remember these vitamins have been processed and heat processed or pasteurized and all these things, which destroys a huge amount of the nutritional value. And then, you can buy fish oils that's like fish oil, and then they process it and how they extract it, and then they just add synthetic back in so that they can have supplements are like a whole nother video too. Like,
it's true.
so we can just talk about what can you eat. So that I wish I would have had that. That's
it's a
pretty
good
cool.
one. I would definitely recommend it. But I mean, you can still get your omega-3s from fatty fish like salmon, and making sure you eat the skin. That's arguably you do that. You get 12 ounces a week, I think is what Rhonda Patrick recommends. And if you're not into the fish eggs, which some people won't be, there are alternatives to that. It's not like you have to be forcing yourself to do this.
Right. And then the DHA tablets, the supplementation, they are just encapsulated fish oils. So that's fine. That's what I'm taking right now. But we should talk a little bit about FDA recommendations, because this has been a huge hindrance for my pregnancy. Robyn's less worried about this, and so her diet has been much better during pregnancy. But I am really worried about listeria. I'm so worried about listeria. And as such, because most of the outbreaks have been from random things like cantaloupe, like sprouts, the fear of getting listeria, which is 1 out of 8,000 pregnancies, has caused me to shrink my diet to what I know is a less healthy diet. So if you could talk a little bit about real risks and the perceived risks, and how the medical community and the FDA, especially with the seafood thing too, they're really on the mercury top. On the mercury topic, I think that it's way overzealous. I think 12 ounces of seafood, even a little higher mercury seafood, is not going to damage a fetus. Most of those studies were done on Islander women that were eating swordfish 5 times a week.
Yeah, exactly.
Then I think that would be good, because I'm having a really hard time finding a happy medium. It's a lot of crackers in my diet. It's bad.
Okay, so throw away your box of crackers and go to the store and buy. Yeah, I mean, listeria. It's you could worry about every single little thing. I wouldn't. Well, I don't know if I'd buy cantaloupe really anyways, but I guess it's it's hard because it's winter, because I would usually say it's really easy during the summer. You can go to, well, at least where I live, you can go to farmers markets and get locally grown produce, and they're not going to have anywhere near the risk of bacteria like that, because, that kind of bacteria is because of factory mass-produced vegetables. And I say factory because it's they're using the same plot of land to grow the same monoculture, and they're using, the crazy spraying booms of chemicals and manure, and then it has to travel halfway across the world and sit on the shelf in this plastic bag. I'm thinking about spinach, and half of it's rotting at the bottom. And so buying, if you're pregnant in the summer, buying fresh things is really important.
Yeah.
I eat less vegetables than maybe a lot of people would say. I would say a good pregnancy diet would be grass-fed beef. And it is important to do grass-fed, because that's when the animal is eating, when it's supposed to eat, all the nutrients will be there. And so, for example, grass-fed beef has CLA, and that's a really good cancer fighter. A lot of our nutrition should come from organic dairy, and you should drink. I'm trying to recall the Weston A. Price Foundation diet for pregnant mothers, a quart of raw milk a day. And I know that boop, boop, raw milk, isn't that gonna kill me from E. coli? But that is just a fallacy. You can more people die from their bagged spinach than raw milk, and raw milk has Well, for example, about the mercury, you're worried about mercury. Well, raw milk is an extremely high source of glutathione. I always think I'm saying that wrong. Glutathione, and that is a heavy metal detoxer, and that helps. That is a really important way that our body detoxes heavy metals. And cheese, organic raw cheese, is like a complete food in itself. Like if you could get something like that. And also raw milk is very high in B12 and B6, and pasteurization destroys much of that. And it's a lot easier to get raw milk than you think. You can go to rawmilk.com, and that website has you by state in the US, and the laws and how to get it. There's only a few where it would be extremely difficult to get.
Is the main difference between the raw and organic milk just the pasteurization process? Like you can get organic milk, but it's been pasteurized.
Right.
So would you say that that's like no different than just standard milk that you would get?
It's definitely I guess we could go by good, better, best.
Right.
Best would be raw milk. It's like a food in itself. And I was just listening to a talk where they did this study, and it was a really small sample size because not many people drink raw milk, but pregnant women said that sipping on raw milk helped ease their morning sickness, which I don't know if it helped for me, because when I had morning sickness, it was awful. I couldn't do anything, but that's something to think about. So best is the raw milk. Good, it's still gonna not have the nutrients, the glutathione's destroyed during pasteurization. It will be clean. It won't have the hormones and the what the cows are eating. Yeah, the cows are eating corn. I don't know, the bad things that cows eat when it's not organic. It won't have any of those deleterious substances. So, if you want milk and homemade cookies and you don't have raw milk easily accessible, you could buy, I would say, look for non-homogenized grass-fed milk at your grocery store.
It is so if I could have gotten my hands on raw milk, I would have checked with my midwife, and if she had said it's okay, I definitely would have given a go. Milk, organic whole milk, has been one of my biggest cravings throughout the entirety of my whole pregnancy. And I've been eating soft cheeses, including some unpasteurized cheeses, also since the second trimester. Now, I do just want to say we are not medical professionals, and it is important to acknowledge the fact that most people in the medical community would not recommend unpasteurized dairy during pregnancy.
Right.
Because
it's illegal.
Of the risks.
It's illegal in 29 states in America. And the reason for that, even though listeria is 1 in 8,000 cases, you're 30 times more likely to contract it during pregnancy because you're immune suppressed, especially in the third trimester.
Right.
And
so you need to be careful, right? You need to check with your medical professional and with your midwife, whoever is conducting your prenatal care, before you do these things. Don't just take our advice. We're just, no
one's going to sue us. I feel like everyone's so afraid. I'm not a medical, they have their disclaimer, because I watch a lot of videos about health, and it's still we're scared, we're scared of the medical community. It's we're just three ladies chatting. You make the decision for yourself.
Yeah, that's true.
Ultimately,
no one's gonna come sue all three of us because they
really
went out and I don't know. We're
well,
good.
I have not consumed any unpasteurized products though even though I greatly prefer the taste. I think it's so much more delicious. I was eating this unpasteurized goat's cheese before I got pregnant, and I was like, this is the best cheese I've ever had in my life, but avoiding it like the plague during pregnancy, just because I'm so scared of the catastrophic outcomes of listeria, which are really stillbirth and miscarriage. It just wasn't worth it to me. So
we should be worried about the catastrophic outcomes of malnutrition in pregnancy.
That's true too.
More than the catastrophic outcomes of listeria, because, and I and not the cheese and raw milk are maybe two different things, but in regard to raw milk, that came during the, Industrial Revolution, where we were not like buying local. Like if you went to the store and bought milk that was milk from a cow like a month ago because it's been sitting there, you're gonna want to, I don't know, like pasteurize it. This is raw milk is a living food. It has live probiotics, it has live enzymes, and those outcompete bad bacteria. It's way more chance that you'll get food poisoning from something you've picked up off the shelf. And although it's illegal in many states, there's plenty of ways. It's illegal where I live, but we do it through a herd share program where you purchase part of the herd of cow. And so you're an owner. So technically you can receive the milk because you're part of a shareholder. That's the most common way that people get around it.
I didn't even know you could do that. That's the most wholesome thing I've ever heard.
And that's been one of the most, healing, nutritious the foods. That's like, why you have to think, why are they taking away and saying all these healthy foods are bad for us? Because that's where I get a little conspiratorial. I don't know, I think they don't want us to be healthy. They don't want us to reproduce. They don't want us to think for ourselves. They don't want us to be bright-eyed and bushy-tailed. They want us malnourished, which causes all of our diseases today. Like all diseases begin in the gut. So that's where my mind goes. Like when the FDA or the CDC or some, like the World Health Organization says, do not eat this, I'm going to eat that. And not like I'm putting myself at danger, but I look into it. Like, why are they telling us this? And why are we so malnourished? Why are the foods that our ancestors knew were sacred and specifically for fertility, like fish roe, not organic, it was like not organic back then, but raw milk, they reserved for the warriors before battle. They reserved it for pregnant women. Raw butter, raw cheese. These were foods of fertility. Egg yolks. These produced healthy, sturdy people that survived without electricity through harsh winters, through plagues, through all these things. Why are we sicker? Why is maternal, why are more women dying in childbirth? Why is it going up now? Why, with all our medical interventions and all of our food guide pyramids, why are we so sick?
I think it's a valid perspective that deserves to be heard, for sure. And I think I personally fall somewhere. I think I'm a little bit more in the middle of things, and that might be due to the fact that this is my first pregnancy, and so my awareness of risk is slightly more heightened, and maybe I'll relax as I move into other pregnancies and stuff. And like I said, I would be open to drinking raw milk from a source that I knew where it was coming from, and I was happy with, the quality of production, and I confirmed it with my midwife. So I'm definitely not opposed to this perspective, but I do think that just because, there are going to be women out there who are watching, that it is important to just drive home the fact that informed consent is about personal responsibility, and anything that you hear in our streams regarding, advice about diet or health, it is just advice. If you were sitting around a table with 3 girlfriends, and it is still incumbent upon you as an individual to make sure that you're checking with your healthcare professionals before you decide whatever they may be, if they might be midwives, it may be OBGYN, whoever it is, whoever you trust, before you take health advice on board. And I really feel like it's important that we do make that distinction, that this isn't like you need to do this or you need to do that. And that's coming from a perspective of actually agreeing with pretty much everything that you just said, Alora. I don't disagree with anything.
Yeah. And I think that looking at the dietary restrictions of other industrialized countries is really helpful too. Like when I was worried about this mercury thing, because I love seafood, I looked a lot into Japanese protocols for pregnancy. And those women, they eat raw sushi their entire pregnancies. They have super healthy pregnancies. And And I'm just looking at the risk there, and I'm like, I really think that this mercury thing is overblown. I looked into some of those studies, and so that's something I'm worried a little less about. Like, I don't know why they would have any restrictions on the amount of salmon, especially that you can eat, because that's a very low mercury food, and 12 ounces it's not that much. That's like
we
once
ate a lot more seafood 100 years ago than we do now. It's like seafood is like cod liver oil, and these are like forgotten, healing, nutritious fertility foods. And it's like, now there's this stigma about seafood. Like, no, if you ask somebody off the street, like just downtown, whatever, they'd be like, yeah, I don't really like the taste of, like, it's not even really something that people, the average American eats. Whereas like I have a recipe book from the 1800s, and oysters are like in every single recipe. And like, if I asked you, like, when's the last time you had an oyster, you'd probably be like, ooh, oyster, never. Or like, these are essential foods that helped us survive, and I think there's a reason why it's changed now.
Awesome. So in conclusion, what's like your top 3 or even top 5, if you have them, you know, in your mind's eye, favorite pregnancy foods?
So yeah, I would say a pregnancy diet should be largely based on animal foods, and they should be just the bottom line, get rid of the junk. You know, when you're eating foods that aren't nutritious, you're not helping your baby grow, and you're setting yourself up for failure, because you're not going to be as strong. You're not going to recover as strong. You might hemorrhage, like all of these things when you're malnourished. You know, you're just setting yourself up for success. And that should be it's hard, because it's really hard when you're even a mom of 3, and, you know, like, what's the quickest way to get you guys fed? You know, like, we just have to, you know, bear down and remember to stay strong. And it's hard. It's hard for me to do too. And I don't always win. So a diet would be largely based on animal foods, clean animal foods, organic, fermented foods, lots of salt to get minerals, and to aid your digestion. Bone broth, lard is high in vitamin D, egg yolks, organ meats, liver pate. I would say I have a video on how to make pate. Like, liver is like nature's multivitamin. I would say 2 to 3 times a week a pregnant woman should eat liver. Which, just briefly, I can touch on, because I say this a lot, and then I get vitamin A toxicity. You know, my OB said don't eat any vitamin A. And, you know, again, why are they telling us this? Because vitamin A is critical for the development of a fetus. You know, your embryo starts out as stem cells, and those stem cells get a signal to start forming the different parts of a body. Like, first thing is the heart. And what gives that signal is vitamin A. And so I kind of dug into this, and what I have found is that there was only one study that indicated a problem with vitamin A in 1995. And that was at the height of, you know, maybe not the height, but the low fat, high grain diet. You know, like, heart healthy is to eat your muffin instead of your eggs for breakfast. And so the study had a few flaws from, you know, others' opinions, and from my opinion, the one study had a few flaws, and it's not a very good way to gather data by using questionnaires. And that's what the study was done. Participants would recall and record what they ate during pregnancy. There were no actual blood tests done for the study. And another flaw is they didn't distinguish between vitamin A from animal foods and synthetic vitamin A that's either given or added to, like, breakfast cereals and like added to our foods. They didn't distinguish between those two. And there's some other weird things about the study, such as maybe the one type of birth defect was higher for the women who ate more vitamin A, but other things were actually lower. And there were consecutive studies done that disproved the study, and they had no media coverage. But this one study about vitamin A was on the front page of the New York Times, and they had consecutive studies that showed that vitamin A was not linked to higher instances of these defects. So that's just, one thing to think about. Another thing is when you're eating carrots, you're not getting vitamin A. Vitamin A is a fat soluble vitamin.
You're getting beta carotene.
You're getting beta carotene, which is, it's a precursor to vitamin A. You convert beta carotene to vitamin A, retinol in your gut. And it takes it's like a 6-to-1 ratio. So you need 6 units of the beta carotene to 1. Sorry, I'm like talking so much to make this. It takes a lot more beta carotene to make vitamin A. And that's when your body is running at optimal levels. And I would say with all of the berating of environmental toxins, like our bodies are not running at optimal, and especially diabetics and those with thyroid dysfunction, which is like half of the population of America. They're not going to be synthesizing beta carotene to very much vitamin A. So that's another reason why we want to be eating a high clean fat diet and animal products, because like vegans and such will say, I'm getting my K from broccoli, I'm getting my A from carrots, but we need to decipher between the types of vitamins and how your body metabolizes them each and where they come from.
Yeah, I'm not even convinced that it's possible to be healthy living on a vegan diet. Like,
yeah, me either.
It's certainly not a way it's not on my like recommended pregnancy diet protocol. Maybe if you need to, like, I don't know, you got to flush your system or something, I wouldn't still recommend it. I'm trying. Every time I do a video, there's like the eyes on the right or the angry white men, because like that guy is like a vegan, right? Like he comes.
Is he really?
Yeah, and he comes. I shouldn't even like say give
what
him
a
attention,
pussy.
but he writes like some article about me because he really hates eating meat or something. But
he's a vegan. That changes everything.
Well,
wow.
It connects a lot of dots.
It does, yeah.
Thank you so much for sharing your perspective on that.
Thank you for listening to my craziness.
I think we can all have our own personal opinions about these things at the end of the day, but I think what is really obvious from to me from listening to you is that you take a lot of your personal opinions very seriously. You do your research. You've taken upon yourself to not just absolve your personal responsibility to like some sort of medical authority, right? You actually feel like it's your job to know these things, to look into it, to do the research yourself and come to your own conclusions. And I would recommend that everyone, do that with their health. 100%.
Your only advocate is yourself.
Right.
Like you're the only one that can make decisions, and you are your own authority. Like Rebecca, when you said, I didn't even know, like I couldn't do the glucose test. And it's like, but don't forget that you choose what's happening to your body. They cannot tell you, a doctor in a lab coat cannot tell you what to do with your body. And they can bully you and pretend like they can tell you, but it's your body, your choice, and you choose the outcome that you want. And I know you were saying like in another podcast you guys did about like on the scale for the worrying or whatever, you're saying you're like way up there, and
neuroticism.
Yeah. Use that strong energy to be an advocate for yourself. Like turn it around. I'm always a positive thinker. Like our personality flaws are not flaws. Like we can use them to our advantage. So use your neuroticism to be your own boss and to tell, somebody, I mean, a doctor, like, no, this is what I want actually.
Right, right.
And I'm not saying, I am not anti-medicine. I'm not anti like medical community. If I have a broken arm, I'm going to go to the emergency room, and I'm going to be so thankful for those doctors who work 20, 40-hour shifts, and they spend time away from their family. They spend thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars on their schooling. They save lives. I was in the emergency room with my daughter had pneumonia. I wasn't going to treat that at home. I decided to go to the emergency room, and I am so thankful that they caught it. I don't ever want to give the impression that I am, anti-medicine, because I think in emergency situations, we are so lucky to live where we live that we can save lives with medicine. So I really want to put that out there. Like, I'm not anti-medicine.
Yeah,
Right.
I think it's important to have a balance of both perspectives.
Yeah, and it's everybody's individual responsibility to decide what level of risk tolerance they have. So, like when we were talking about the listeria thing, 1 in 8,000 births, that might sound minuscule to some people, but like I hear something like that, and I'm like, that's not that low. and so, yeah, along with being your own advocate, you have to decide like these are the litany of possible things that could go wrong, that could go right. These are the possible interventions, and like I'm willing to sustain X level of risk, and that's just part of being your own advocate for your health, for your baby. And so it's really good to hear all the perspectives about how we're doing things, how we're doing home births, how some of us are giving births in hospitals and things like that. We want our audience, since the beginning of the show, we want our audience to kind of have the full range of experience, from first-time moms that are just trying to find their way through this mess in the medical community, in the midwifery and in homeopathic communities, and just trying to be sensible without being too crunchy, without relying on doctors too much. So your perspective is really valuable to us, and we really appreciate you coming on today.
And I just want to say, like, I know we talked about home birth today, but Rebecca, you will have an amazing, awesome birth at a hospital. Please don't take, my experiences and my opinions like I'm like bashing you or something.
Oh no, not at all.
You're gonna like rock that shit. Like, you're gonna birth your baby, and you're gonna have a sweet little baby girl to put a little pink hat on, and none of this is gonna matter. Like, you're gonna look into her eyes and just, it will all melt away, and you'll be in ecstasy.
And who knows, maybe it'll be different like it was for you. Maybe it'll be different the second time around for me. I don't know how it's going to play out. So we'll see.
Awesome. Well, if anyone is interested to hear more from Elora, you can check out her links to her other socials. She has a YouTube channel and a Twitter account and an Instagram feed. She goes by the name The Blonde Buttermaker. So you can search her, or you can check out those links in the description. Also, remember, if you are interested in seeing more content like this from myself and Rebecca, you can check out the links to support the content monetarily, or you can just share the link. You can give us a like if you enjoyed the stream. That really helps with us getting recommended to other people through the algorithm as well. Is there, oh, look, there's a little puppy in this shot. I'm distracted. So yeah, thank you again, Elora, for joining us. I hope that we can have you back again sometime in the future.
That would be awesome. Thank you.
Okay, and thanks for watching, everybody. Bye, guys.
Okay, see you next week, guys.